it's funny how, you have these mutual connections in life. And, this podcast has given me an opportunity to connect with some of these connections that I've been around. I've had a handful of interactions with, but never really got to hear their story. And recently I've been able to connect with our guest, who is Sammy Christensen. He's a local guy here in Idaho who is super inspiring to me. I think he's an incredible human being. And yeah, I had the opportunity to kind of, play some basketball, lift some weights, and chat with the guy for the last couple of weeks. And I was like, man, I got to get you on the podcast. I really do. Shout out to Brent Chapman as well, one of my best friends who I coach with at Idaho Premier. Brent's the one who brought up the idea of getting him on the podcast. And then after I had played some ball with Sammy and lifted weights, I'm like, dude, yeah, we definitely got to get you on the podcast, dude. There's just so many cool stories, and you'll like his journey. It's unique, We're going to be talking about multi-sport athletes playing multiple sports throughout high school and what he learned through that. We'll talk about how he ended up playing baseball when originally he was actually being recruited to play football, and he didn't really have a lot of direction, but how the whole entire baseball thing shifted. We'll talk about the junior college experience in baseball, what it was like going to the bigger university, right? And then getting drafted, and going through the minor leagues, and the life lessons that he took along the way. And another big strength that Sammy has that I wish everybody could just take notes of, so please get your notepads out, is regarding mindset. You're going to learn a lot about the mindset, what he learned, all the different things that will help you if you're equipped with these things moving forward. So, I'm really excited to bring this interview to you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're watching this on YouTube, follow me here so you can catch all of them. But just remember, this is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. Excited to be here with you guys for another episode, 8 years running into the podcast. And like I say each week, I appreciate all those who have jumped on board sometime during the last 8 years. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, welcome aboard. Happy to have you here with us. There is a reason this show has been downloaded in 182 countries in all 50 states. It's because of everybody like yourselves who have tuned in at some point or shared the podcast or have been on the podcast. It takes a village to make this thing happen, and I appreciate everybody's support for it. So as you guys heard in the intro, you've probably seen some of my posts about this now, about promoting this episode. Super awesome opportunity for me. Now, our guest here, his name's Slammin Sammy Christensen. Now, Sammy is a guy that's pretty well known here in the area, and we got a lot of mutual friends. I've known of Sammy for years, and just have recently gotten a better opportunity to chat with him more and more. So excited to have him on the show. Sammy, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shane. I'm a big fan, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. What's cool, Sammy, is I don't think a lot of people outside of like the sports ecosystem that you kind of roll with. I mean, there's a lot of people who know who you are, but the people that probably just know you as like from the outside probably would never realize who you are and what you've accomplished in your life and like what you continue to accomplish. So that's why I'm excited to kind of break it down and unbox it a little bit. Let's flash back a little bit. Well, actually, you know what? Let me preface something real quick. Dude, for those who are listening, okay, I go and I play basketball with Sammy and some of his friends the other day. 2 weeks ago was the first time I played with them. I was so blown away. I've spoken about this like in 3 different settings, how much you and Mike were bench pressing. It's unbelievable that you guys are still able to not only bench, but reverse grip bench 3 plates. Like it's ridiculous. It's disgusting how strong you guys are. So I'm actually really inspired by that. I just want everybody to know that needs to be stated, how strong you guys are. But anyway, Sammy, let's flash back to your high school days and kind of get to know a little bit more about your sports background. So to my understanding, you were a multi-sport athlete. Could you kind of break that down, what sports you competed in when you were younger?
Yeah, I played in high school. I played 3 sports. I played baseball, basketball, and football. And, I was a late bloomer in high school. So I really came out of it my senior year, being an all-state player in the 3 sports. But I really didn't start on I wasn't a starter until my senior year in all 3 sports.
Okay. So I actually appreciate you saying that because I too was a late bloomer. And I did not play varsity. I didn't play varsity until my senior year, for that matter. I didn't just not start. I didn't play varsity until my senior year. When it came to basketball, I was a late bloomer. And so that's my question for you now then on that is I have 2 questions, but let's start with the first one. Patience. What would you say to the athletes that might be in a situation like that? Because not everybody develops at the same rate when they're younger. And I think there's a lot of issues with patience. I coach a lot of high school athletes in basketball. And I mean, they have a short window, 3 or 4 years max in the high school realm. And they see some of their friends developing really quickly. And they might feel like they're just going to lose out on all these opportunities. I guess I always try to tell them just be patient, but it's easier said than done. What would you say in regards to that, having been in a similar situation?
Yeah, I mean, it is so tough for kids to understand that because with social media, you get caught up in comparison, and so you want to achieve now, and so you always hear the saying, "Trust the process," and I think you say that, but kids really don't understand what that is. And so I think if you can really break down what the process actually is, chop wood, carry water. You're going to do this every day. You're going to grind. You got to stick with it. And then, you're learning all these lessons through the process. But I think helping kids understand that, like, you're not going to get the glory right away. And sometimes it might be just your senior year. Sometimes it might be your freshman year. But just sticking to your plan and then really being intentional on your goals. Like, what do you want to accomplish as an athlete and as a person?
I like that. Breaking down the process and understanding that's a huge one. As I always encourage you guys, if you're listening to this, make sure to rewind it. You can always rewind it if you're on your device. Rewind it. Take notes on what Sammy's saying. So, Sammy, the 3 sports that you played, talk to me about that being a multi-sport athlete. I feel like today it's 2025, but really for the last like 5 to 10 years, it feels like there's been a shift where kids are now getting siloed into one sport a little bit sooner than I remember it ever being. I mean, they're playing club sports year round, so they get 1, maybe 2 sports that they're competing in, but they get siloed into one. And I think a lot of that is that it's trying to keep up with it's part of the rat race, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to make sure that other people aren't passing them up. But I always have taught them that like multi-sport athletes are there's so many things you can learn from other sports. Is there something you might be able to share from this, like how one sport translated to another during your time playing?
Oh, absolutely. I think playing multiple sports, I think it makes you stronger as well, mentally and physically. I think you work on different muscles, and it's hard to be a multi-sport athlete because, like you said, you get caught up and you don't want anyone to pass you by. And so, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you now, especially with you being around younger, athletes and just being around just the athletics world, so to speak, you're around them. What do you like? What's the advice you give them then? Like, do you encourage them to be multi-sport athletes? Like, what is your thoughts on that in 2025?
I do. I think especially, starting in elementary and middle school, and if you can early on in high school, play as many sports as you can because you never know. Like, you could be a late developer in a certain sport and really have a gift and a talent at that sport once you tap into it. And I think playing as many sports as you can, as long as you can, and then breaking it down the older you get and as you progress in high school, then maybe. But I'm for the multi-sport athlete. I love it. I think you learn a toughness and determination, trying to figure things out and working, to keep up with everyone. I think you have to work harder playing multiple sports. So I think you just learn a lot more. You develop a lot more skills by playing more sports.
I would totally agree with that, man. I actually like I see it. Some of those multi-sport athletes, they move differently. When I'm coaching the seniors in high school for club ball, you can tell which ones have ran track, which ones have played baseball, which ones have played football, soccer. They move a little differently too. It's just kind of interesting. They have different. They've developed different athleticism, like athletic movements, and they've developed a different mental like strength, like you said. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I've noticed it myself being around them, and you can just tell like, oh, that guy's played multiple sports. You can totally tell. Question for you
And
then.
I do like.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I think I've had parents when I was coaching baseball in the past, like, "Hey, how do I get my kid tougher?" I'm like, "Make him wrestle." Like put him in something, like to do something to challenge him and make him tough, like play another sport. So I think there's ways to develop skills through other sports.
You know what's funny? Okay, I'm glad you just said that, Sammy. So you and I had kind of have a similar interest and passion for the sport of boxing. They're like, I'm a huge fan of the sport of boxing and combat sports in general, but I love boxing. That's actually like I started boxing when I was 15 for Golden Gloves in Boise, Idaho, off of Vista, and I was boxing for the Vista boxing club back then. And I remember like that was actually where I developed some confidence because, as I mentioned, I was a late bloomer in high school. Like I was a sophomore on the sophomore team for basketball, junior on JV, and then I finally was on varsity as a senior, where I played pretty well my senior year. But when I was 15 years old, the end of my sophomore year, that's where I decided I was going to take up boxing. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do this. No, none of my friends are doing it. I love the sport. Nobody else does it. Somewhere I can go and just develop confidence. And dude, I developed toughness. I developed some speed. I learned how to take a hit, multiple hits, multiple times, and be able to like
understanding
just kind of
failure.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, it developed a lot of confidence, and I honestly believe that like going into the summer for summer basketball for high school, my boxing training had completely shifted the way in which I competed because I had developed so much more confidence. So anyway, I can relate to that what you just mentioned. Coming out of high school, I want to know kind of what were the I guess your goals were going to the next level. I know back then it's a little different than it is now in regards to recruiting or what you wanted. I know you had mentioned that there might have been a little bit a lack of direction, so to speak, kind of with your aspirations. So kind of just tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I really didn't. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of direction. I knew I wanted to play sports, and I had, some football offers, Boise State, Idaho State, and a few, small D1s at the time. But I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. And so the summer after I graduated, I was playing Legion baseball, and I was playing up in Montana at the Billings tournament, and I hit a couple home runs, and San Diego State coach was there. And then they started talking to me, and then they started to recruit me. And then come to find out I hadn't done the NCAA clearinghouse. So I wasn't going to that school. So then they had sent me to a junior college, which was like a feeder program to them. Which then at that time someone wanted me and wanted to pay attention to me, and I think the coach was Jim Dietz, and he told me, hey, you have a gift. I think you should pursue baseball. Like, you're a big, strong kid. And so that kind of led me on the direction of, wow, this guy thinks I'm good. I believe it.
Wow. Okay, so what's interesting about that, this is where I was saying at the beginning that if you don't know you, if we don't know you, like your close friends know you, I would not have known any of this information. Like I've known who you are, I've crossed paths with you, but I've never known you like this. That's actually really intriguing. So football was kind of one of those things you were getting recruited for, but it was the summer after you graduated and you were playing in a tournament where people started seeing you, and that's kind of where that process started. So that's crazy because that just speaks to being patient and kind of just letting things come to you a little bit. I guess if any kid is struggling right now, like Sammy got looks after he was done with high school. So that's just kind of crazy. And it's not too absurd to kind of think that if you're good enough at something, there's opportunities will come about if you put yourself in the right situation. So my question here is, did you end up going the junior college route then, Sammy, and playing JUCO baseball?
I did. Yep.
What was your junior college experience like? I want to kind of break that down because there's a negative stigma, I think, about JUCO products. And I don't think that. I actually think it's an amazing opportunity, but I want to know what your thoughts are on the junior college experience.
Well, the junior college baseball, it changed my life. Like you develop at the junior college because, first of all, like in the NCAA, you only have 20 hours a week to practice. At the junior college, you don't have any time limits. And if you have dedicated coaches that are there to, win and make you better, make you a better person, which I was fortunate to have, you develop and you get really, really good. And so I went to a smaller town in Southern California, and it changed my life. I went there and we practiced 4 to 6 hours a day.
Wow, dude. What was the housing arrangement like down there? California junior college is a lot different than some of the other junior colleges, at least in the western part of the states, just because at least now they don't provide housing in California junior college. So that's why I'm curious. Like, was it like that back then?
It was miserable. I roomed with 3 guys in a small 2-bedroom house. So, it, yeah, it was bad. And actually when I got there, I absolutely hated 2 of my roommates. Like I almost got in a fist fight with one of them, and then turns out he's one of my best friends today. We text each other every other week, and yeah, it was crazy. We were just from different walks of life, and yeah, it's crazy how the world works.
Yeah, dude, it all comes full circle. That's cool though. Like everything works out how it's supposed to. It's funny because I had spoken with Jake Bauer about 7 years ago on my show. He talked about the junior college experience in California. We also talked to Tyler Rasa, who kicked for Boise State and kicked in the professional level at the US. What would it be, the USFL or whatever, XFL as well. And he talked about it. And everyone who's played in California has had similar things to say about the housing arrangements. It's not ideal necessarily. So I guess my question for you though is this. I know you said it changed your life. You had to go, like the living arrangement sucked, but you also had some benefits there of being able to practice without a time restraint. What was your favorite memory from your junior college baseball experience?
Um, well, going back real quick, our coach, one of the things was, we're going to have 3 good hours of practice, even if it takes us 6 hours. So going back to junior college, you are going to develop and you're going to have great practices, even if they take you a long, long time. You're going to learn the skill and you're going to get good at it. But going back to I guess the favorite memories was, it was the first time I was on my own. I developed a brotherhood with, we all had the same goal. We wanted to win. We wanted to develop as good people and good athletes. And I think that junior college was special to me because it was a hard time in my life, first time being alone, and really growing up and learning the world and understanding failure.
Ah, okay. Talk to me about that. Understanding failure in what way? Can you unbox that a little bit?
Well, you go and you learn you don't have money. You learn that you're. I was fortunate to have a good mom that I called all and back then we didn't have cell phones, and so I would sneak a call and be like, "Hey, mom, can you wire me $50? I'm hungry." And you learn how to budget. You learn how to take care of money, and so you you just get hit in the face with life and like, hey, like, here's your responsibilities. You have to take care, you have to budget, you have to eat right, you have to recover, you have to work out hard. And then um those are the lessons, the life lessons of being on your own at the beginning.
No, see, that's a good explanation because those kids, the kids these days, I should say, that go, I have a lot of them. A lot of the kids I've coached go to junior colleges. That's just kind of the state of Idaho basketball. It's kind of the route a lot of them have to take is go the junior college route first. That's okay. I think it's great, but a big transition happens there, and I think it's hard to explain it to them. And I hope they just took note of what you said because I feel like they think it's just going to be this easy thing. I mean, you've got academic requirements you've got to meet, you've got your athletic requirements, you've got your housing situation, and then like you just said, there's a transition of life. You're no longer with mom and dad, and so you just have to learn those little things. And there's some stress that comes along with that. If you were to give advice to any kids that are coming fresh out of high school, kind of going the junior college route, getting prepared, what would be the piece of advice you give them, Sammy?
Well, I would go back to like having a focus, because you see a lot of kids that they sign nowadays and they're happy and they're satisfied. They're like, "Yay, I get to celebrate with my family." But they don't understand the grind, and they don't understand that, hey, you're going to go get kicked in the teeth the minute you get there, because you show up to college and, oh, there's some red shirts here that are big, strong guys. They're men, and so your mindset is like, am I good enough? And you have all these doubts and worries when you get there. And so I think understanding, like, so I guess my what I would say to them is, your self-confidence, like, you have to believe in yourself. when you go to college. And then I think having that intentional focus, like, what do you want to accomplish here? Do you want to go be a good athlete? Like, so you can go back to your goals and your focus where it's like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm going to leave and I'm going to quit. And we see a lot of kids do that because they don't know what they want in the end, and they don't know what they want to get out of it. And they don't understand that, hey, I'm going to fail. I'm going to suck. I'm going to be the worst player on the team at times. I might be the best player on the team at times, but I got to understand that this is the process and this is what you're going to go through. And I think if they understand that it's going to be hard, because a lot of times when you sign, you think everything's all, fine and dandy, but it's hard. And college sports is competitive. Junior college is competitive. You have some dudes there that, might be there for different reasons.
100%. I appreciate that. I appreciate the insight there. And I'm going to make sure that's probably going to be one of those clips that I take out on social media, because I think that's important. I think the reality needs to be, and it's not to scare people. It's just making sure you have a focus and understand why you're going there. It's not this happy-go-lucky, smiles. We made our social media post about it, and then all of a sudden you get there. It's like most of those junior colleges too are like in the middle of nowhere. Even the ones in WAC
Yes.
are like they're kind of in these podunk areas, and it's like you really don't have much besides books and ball, and that's kind of whatever. It's kind of tough. So, Sammy, when you were going to the next stages of your career, whether transitioning out of the junior college route, what was that like?
So I was lucky to have very good coaches. Like, my coach was very demanding. He was tough, but he empowered me, and I was an All-American in junior college. And so I had a ton of D1 offers. I think I had 15 D1 offers that I could have accepted. Well, the college that I went to at the time was University of Southern Colorado. It was actually a D2, and that coach came in and he flew me to Colorado. It was one of the 5 recruiting trips I took. And he said, "What's your end goal? Is it pro ball?" And I really didn't know. And I said, "Yeah, it's pro ball." And he goes, "Well, if you say who you say you are and you come to this program, I promise you'll be drafted." And so I was like, whoa, okay. And we just connected. Like, he called me every day. He was very persistent and determined to get me. And so I signed with Southern Colorado, which is now Colorado State of Pueblo. They're in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. And so I went there, had, 2 good years, and then was drafted out of there.
That's actually pretty cool. What was the biggest difference between your junior college like experience as a whole from a school and that of a bigger program like that?
Well, again, like, I think the quantity of people, like, we had way more red shirts. You had big, strong guys. Just the speed of the game was just, even though we had like 5 kids drafted from our JUCO, the speed of the game was a little bit faster and more competitive.
Gotcha. And what was a day like in the life of a baseball player in college for you, like at that level before you get drafted? What was like weight room classes? What was it like? Because I think sometimes baseball players, there's like this idea behind it that they don't work as hard as the other athletes because, you're sitting in the outfield for there's like 30 seconds in between every single pitch. And it's just kind of like, but I've spoken to people and I feel like it's a different, it should be different on that opinion. So what was it like for you?
Well, again, I like at Colorado State, my coach he coached Ken Griffey Jr. in the minor leagues. He coached with Augie Garrido. I don't know if you know who Augie Garrido is.
Crazy.
Crazy guy at Texas. So he was Augie Garrido 0.2. So our practices were intense. We ran with rebars in our hand. At the time, he would call one person on the team. So he was like a psychologist. He would call one person at 5 a.m. and he would say, "Hey, everybody." Well, actually, we had to be there at 5. So he'd call someone at 4 o'clock and he said, "Everybody on this team better be here at 5 o'clock." And so, again, we didn't have cell phones. So we were, if someone didn't answer their phone, we would have to call or like go drive to someone's house, pick them up, make sure they get to the field at 5 o'clock in the morning. but there was a purpose to it. So at the end of the year, when we were about ready for the playoffs, that our coach, Sanchez, he said, I remember him saying, like, hey, do you remember those phone calls? Guess what? Like, you put in the work, like, now you're starting to worry again. You're starting to worry that your teammates aren't there. You're going to be there. We're showing up for each other. And so there was a purpose to all his madness that made us so tough. It was crazy. And so that's why he inspired me to be, I study a lot of psychology and I work with a lot of our youth on mindset.
Dude, that's actually amazing, man. We've got to get you to come over to the Helix Mental Performance Camp and chat with us over there for one of our things in the summer, because that's one of the businesses I run alongside with, the guy who owns it is Garrett Crone, and I helped him run it last year. And so I think you would be phenomenal for some of these athletes. That's super cool. You've been there, though. You've seen a coach that's put you through it, and you yourself now study that kind of thing. So that's pretty awesome, man. That's brutal, but when you can look back and see what it did for you, I think that's really cool. Like hindsight, you see exactly what it was, pushing you to be, and what the method was behind the madness, as you said. Sammy, as you finished up, you mentioned to the coach, initially you mentioned that you wanted to go professional. Talk to us about that experience. Baseball is an interesting one to me. I've always found it very interesting because typically there's like some of the top prospects come right out of high school. They sign deals and they do their thing, try making it through. And then some, like, it's one of those sports where you don't hear a ton of college prospects going professional as often. I'm sure there's tons of them, but like you just don't hear about it as often because a lot of the prospects that are the big leaguers, they're coming out of high school or something. But I want to know if that's an accurate assumption on my part, or if I'm mistaken there. And two, what was it like as you were figuring out your professional realm?
Yeah, I think I just, I was a late bloomer, and first of all, like I had like that coach, he empowered me. Like I remember as we went before we played the district playoff, or the regional playoff, my junior year. So I received like second team All-American my junior year, and then first team my senior year. But there was a kid that got the first team All-American, and my coach said, I would bet my house that Christensen's better than this kid. And so like he believed in me so much that I thought I was better than I was, and I never wanted to disappoint him. And so I played out of my mind because this guy believed in me. So wow. It just set me up like, man, he's so influential. And, but after my junior year, I went to the draft board. I was cross-checked by a lot of scouts. And when the draft came along, I had this red scout, a few scouts that were like, hey, we want to draft you. Well, the draft came, they didn't draft me. The red scout came back, met me and my coach at the park, and he said, listen, we went after some pitching during the draft. We like you. If you can get your 60 time down to a 6.9 or below a 6.9, you'll be drafted. He's like, because you can play multiple positions, la-di-da-di-da. So I set some goals, and I remember running sprints every day. I was working on something. Like I got so crazy. I was sprinting to my fridge and then like just working on technique. And at that time they would say, you can't get faster, like speed. You can't teach speed, but that was a load of crap because you can get faster, and you can, if you have a focus. And so that's what I did. I, at the combine, at the scout thing, I ran a 6.88 and a 6.9 flat. So
wow. So you can teach speed. Yeah, you can. That's crazy.
You can.
So what transpired after that then? So you improved, you did what you were asked to do. What was the process like after that?
So then, after my senior year, I was talking to maybe like 6 organizations. And then I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, who I hadn't had any contact with. It was the weirdest thing. And so I was drafted by them, and then I was shipped off to Bradenton, Florida. And then the minor league life.
So how long did your professional career last from start to finish?
So I lasted 2 years.
Okay.
So after my second year, and I think that's like I really struggled. Like I started off hot. Like um I played really well when I went to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and I was playing really good. And then something just hit. Like because if you're not a bonus baby, you play like every other game, or you just have no room for air. Like if I was, well, that's what, at least what I thought. Like I'm like, I got to get a hit. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I didn't understand failure because I had so much success in college. And so putting all that pressure, doubting all my abilities, I was a train wreck. And so learning all those things, now I understand it. And so I try and help our youth today, like with baseball and softball, and like, what's your mindset? Like what are some trigger words? What's the process of when you go up to bat? Do you take deep breaths? Do you visualize what you're going to do before you do it? Because everything happens twice, first in your mind and then in reality. And so now I teach the phase of, just steps on how to be successful and how to train your brain to be strong and understand failure.
Dude, the understanding failure piece is something I think all of us, including adults, need to probably get a little bit better at with our conditioning there. The minor league system is a grind. I've talked to, Brandon Barnes, for example, was in the minor leagues, and then he ended up playing for the Rockies and the Astros and had a couple good seasons in the majors. But everyone I've talked to that's had minor league experience, it is a grind. It is, and there's no guarantees either. In the professional level, some of it's about opportunity that might not ever come. It's in all sports, the professional level. Sometimes it's just with the opportunity that's dealt. I guess I know it was a 2-year stint, but what was the biggest what was the biggest life lesson, I guess you could say, from your minor league? Was it all of those things, like learning to understand failure and learning all those things? Was that the biggest takeaway that you got from those 2 years?
Yeah, I think, I learned a lot of life lessons. I think um having to so I had a like I was one of the only white guys to room with a Dominican guy. Like you just don't
Oh,
do
wow.
that. And I we would go on trips, and so I would stay. And at the beginning, same thing. I hated this guy, and then it turned out to be one of my best friends. But um, kind of a story with us. Like I thought this guy was loud, and I thought he was annoying, and so like after a couple scuffles we had, I was like, "Hey, Manny, why are you so loud and annoying?" Like, and then he would swing so hard that he would like fall over, and he was just violent. This guy was violent. And so I asked him, "Why do you play like that?" And he told me, "Hey, Sammy, if I don't play like that, I don't eat. My family's not going to eat. If I don't play this hard, I have to play as hard as I possibly can." And I was like, "Whoa, this guy's hungry. He's playing with a bigger purpose than this." So I learned, just to understand people and have empathy. And even though this guy annoys me, he's like a real person. Like he signed for $25,000. He gave it all to his mom. He bought her a little house in Dominican Republic. Like just an incredible like person. And
Dude, what
so
what a cool experience though, right? Like you get it, like that's crazy. Like I I have similar stories on my mission for that, but that's hilarious. No, that's cool.
and,
So
and
go
then
ahead, go ahead.
he asked me like, why are you being so scared? Why are you like not swinging as hard? Like and then I was like, I don't know. What am I afraid of? Like, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm playing in here worried that I'm not going to play, and now I'm not going to play because I'm playing so poorly because I'm not believing in myself. And so it just changed my mindset of like, just live fearlessly and do it. And so um, it was a good opportunity. And then just working like in education, working with uh, you know, diversity. It's good. So
No, I feel you, dude. That's awesome, brother. So, it's kind of cool to hear the ups and the downs, the cool life lessons that you take through the sports world, and then what you can translate into your actual now your life post sports. But you're actually still competing. It's what's crazy is like you're still hooping, and you're still doing the thing, you're still staying active, which I admire. I think it's absolutely incredible. Um, So, I mean, and I also saw you're national champ when it comes to softball, dude. I mean, like, and you're like city league champion 500 times. I mean, the dude, like, when I said this at the beginning of the podcast, you guys, like, I'm not joking. Sammy is still a freaking good athlete, dude. Yeah, so he may not be a professional anymore as an athlete, but he's definitely still athletic and doing his thing. So I guess you mentioned psychology and just understanding mindset. One of those things that's like one of my biggest passions, Sammy, is like I wish I would have known some of this stuff when I was back then, because I didn't play with a lot of confidence when I was younger. Yes, I led the league in high school in 3-point percentage my senior year. Like, it was really cool. Like that was kind of neat. But like, I was so timid and I didn't have the confidence that I probably should have had. And like, my mindset was weak. And I wish I would have had those tools that are necessary. And that's why I love talking to people like yourself. I had a guy named Trevor Mowad on the show. He wrote a book called It Takes What It Takes before he passed away. And he was Russell Wilson's mental consultant for when, the quarterback Russell Wilson. And he had taught a lot about neutral thinking and the concept of that. Anyway, I think it's awesome when you understand that stuff. I guess what would be being around athletes and knowing what you know from a psychological standpoint and a mindset standpoint, what is the biggest problem that these athletes have as young athletes right now? I mean, is it the fear of failure or not understanding failure? Is it anxiety? And what are they not equipped with that you think they should be equipped with?
Oh man, that's a loaded question, and it kind of depends on the athlete. But I think a lot of kids. I don't want to make our youth sound negative. I don't want to say entitled, but I think sometimes they don't understand that they have to earn it.
Sure.
And I think that's just the way it is with like how the club's set up now. Like if you're not getting what you want, it's easy just to leave. Like you don't have to earn and claw through some things and work through some adversity. And so um I I think it comes down to self-confidence, like believing in yourself, but then also being real with yourself, like identifying like what's holding you back, what are your weaknesses, and then being open to take that criticism to improve. Like, do you need to get faster? Do you need to be tougher? And then how do you do it? And I think being able to, like, for kids, I think creating a roadmap for them, setting goals, and then how are you going to reach that goal? Am I going to work out 2 times a week with a speed coach? Am I going to focus on my nutrition? And so having a roadmap to reach that goal is very important for kids. And then I think you need you need systems, like as you play, like, do you breathe? Do you visualize? Like, what are the things you do extra that are going to help you?
I love all of that. I probably at a different time will probably pick your brain even more on that as I
I'll send you
continue to
all
try to.
kinds of stuff.
Dude, I need to implement some of that into the coaching that we do and being around some of these kids. Like, you want to help them, and it's like I need to try to find them the tools that they can be equipped with to do it. And I think a lot of it, Sammy, comes from like trusting their mentors and their coaches too. Some of them want to learn, but they're scared to ask for help and stuff, and they're trying to figure this stuff out. And I think it comes down to like trusting your mentors. I guess a question I would have for you is, who are some of the coaches that stood out to you in your life, mentors that stood out to you that had a positive impact for you, and what did they teach you? Like, why did they stand out?
Well, first of all, I want to point out I admire you because you do help our youth. And like you said, you believe in kids, you point out their strengths, and they do need someone to trust. And I think if kids don't trust you and they don't think you believe in them, then you're not gonna get the most out of them. And I love that about you, is because you do that with everybody you come across. That's just who you are. But I love that you work with our youth and you build them up and you're trying to find what makes this kid tick. So I love that, and I love that you're giving back because you were probably that same kid, and you have those strengths to help tap into that. But I had so many good coaches. I played for Brent Cutter and his dad that just passed last week. Big mentors to me in high school, taught me how to be tough, taught me never to cut corners. I remember in a weights class, I told Brent, I filled out a thing that I that I did all the sets, and he the next day he was actually my lifting partner, and he made me work so hard. I thought I was going to die, but I learned not to cut corners. And then my college coaches, I had Dick Adams and Stan Sanchez. They believed in me. They empowered me, but they demanded my best, and they were really upset if I didn't bring it every day. And so it's kind of, I don't know, they were influential. And, I try and take some of their strengths that I loved about them and use all of that with kids and with our youth now.
Man, I love that. I think that's cool. First off, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you on before that. But then that is so cool, dude. Cutting corners, dude. I love it. Just holding people accountable, man. You figure that one out pretty quick after somebody catched you for it. And, one of the last things I wanted to ask Sammy is, and this is something that I admire about you and the whole crew. Like, I was like so excited that I was invited to come hang out with you guys for, come play some ball and lift some weights. And I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen. I was like, oh, sure, yeah, I'll come hang out with you guys. One, I've never played FIBA rules basketball, surprisingly enough. And you guys are just torching me. And I'm like, holy crap, dude. And then you grab out the mats and we're doing mat pushes and I'm falling on the ground because my quads are giving out, my shoulders giving out. I'm like, what the frick? You guys are like, I'm not saying you're old, but you're just older than me. And it's like, dude, these guys are 10 years older. Some of them are even more. They're like 10, 15 years older than me. And they're just killing it at 5:30 in the morning. And I love that. That's like the type of people I want to be around. So my whole point is like, soar with the Eagles or cluck with the chickens type of deal. You guys are like the Eagles that you want to be around. Like that's community. And so my whole question here is like, one, I admire the group that you have and just being like, encouraging one another. That's just continuing to do that in adulthood. We need more of that. But like, what is the impact? What have you seen the impact of having positive influences around you and being one yourself? And how can the younger athletes in the world and the younger kids, not just athletes, just people, how can they benefit from having a good circle, like a good inner circle, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. It gives us purpose in life. Like I wake up every day and I have something to look forward to because, whether we get our butts kicked, with the mat pushes or with the burpees, whatever it is, like I look forward to that because we do have a brotherhood and a community of just building each other and making each other stronger and better. But what was your question again?
So just like obviously there's kind of two questions. It's just like the importance of having the inner circle. And then what do you think, like, what advice would you give to other people on the importance of having a good inner circle? I think the people you surround yourself with, I mean, that's just, there's a breakdown there. There's some direct correlations with the people you're around and how you will continue to elevate yourself too. So just your thoughts on that, having a good group like yourself, what would you say to the other people in finding themselves a good inner circle?
I tell kids all the time, like, if you hang around with 5 druggies, you're going to be the 6th. If you hang around 5 jerks or 5 kids that are mean to their mom, you're going to be the 6th. If you hang around 5 straight A students, you're going to be the 6th. And so you are what you surround yourself with. And, I think it's so important because, especially for our youth, they want to find out who they are. But it's so important to surround yourself with good people because that's who you become. And when you have a group that can build you up and that make you better, that they push you to be your best, then it's just, I think that's what life's all about, is those connections and those little things that just, they make a difference.
Absolutely, dude. I think it's so cool. I think it's cool and it's inspiring to me to see your inner circle. And I would also echo those words that Sammy just said for anybody who's listening. Is we're getting close to wrapping up the interview. I just want to remind you guys, like, surround yourself with positive people. I mean, that's the same in business, sports, whatever. Just find some people that will elevate you, and everybody elevates one another. And that's when powerful things can happen. It's kind of cool to see that. It's very rare as you get older to have an inner circle like that. And that's why I think it's so awesome. You find a community and there's power in that. So, Sammy, as we're wrapping up the interview, I had 2 questions left and then I'll let you go, man. I referenced it earlier, boxing. You have like everyone's talked about like your boxing. We've talked about your baseball. We talked about football stuff, but I know you've had some boxing and you just, I've heard you had some smokers that you've done or something. So just talk to us about where boxing lies in the mix of all of these things that you've done in your life.
My dad was a boxer, and growing up, and then he had some unfortunate events happen to him where he was disabled at 28 years old and wasn't able to do it anymore. And so, like you, I was a big fan. He would buy me the Ring magazine from the grocery store, and we didn't have cable back then, but we would follow the magazine, and then we would buy the pay-per-view. And so I was always a big fan, and just studying, the technique and just watching. I was just always a big sports fan, and so. Um, having the opportunity to do that. And I remember like, oh, I can take my dad, like he can barely walk. And at 12 years old, he hit me in the gut so hard that I, hunched over, and, I learned from that, like, oh, it's a fight. You're going to get hit. You're going to, and so, um, then going to Gate City boxing a little bit, practicing. And then as I got older, I never had the time, but, doing a couple of smokers, I think the best part was the training and learning a lot about yourself through the adversity. Like, you want to quit, like you think you're this tough guy, you spar for a minute and then you're about to puke and you just want to run away. Like you think you can beat someone up, but you can't even punch because you're so tired after 1 minute of boxing. And people don't understand how hard that is. I was fortunate to train with Cleveland Quarter for a little bit, and I was like, I'm gonna work him. We have big 16-ounce gloves and headgear. I chased him around. He's 170 pounds, and I couldn't even touch him. And so it's very humbling, and it's just, I just love the sport because what it teaches you.
Ah, dude, I'm just so happy to hear someone say something like that, dude. It's so funny. Dude, just real quick, Sammy, when I went in to the boxing ring for the first time, my first month in there was my second day in there, actually. They always tell your parents, like, they tell my mom, no, we won't let them spar for at least a month, if not 3 months. No, they had me in there the second day. Mom wasn't there anymore. They're like, hey, suit up, put my headgear on. And I'm fighting a dude who was like 145 pounds. I mean, at the time I was 165. I was a lot smaller back then. I was a 15-year-old 165er, but the guy was little Hispanic guy named Humberto. And Beto freaking, dude, I remember like how fast he could punch. And I used to think that these little guys were just weak, but I remember getting my head snapped back on the first punch he ever hit me with, and it like sparked me, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I learned a lot during that, and then just being tired a minute into it, like you said, like people think take a couple shots and then you'll be like hesitant to throw punches because then if you throw, you're going to get hit, like all the things. But it taught me a lot too, because I'm like, man, even the small guys, if taught properly, they'll pop you, dude, if you're not trained properly. So anyway, I love all of those stories. That's awesome. And do you have a favorite boxer that you looked up to? Like your dad was obviously a boxer, but is there any professional boxer that you watched when you were younger?
Yeah, I was I love the 80s, Riddick Bowe and Tyson and Hoyfield, but my favorite boxer was Big George Foreman. So I just loved like the power. It was so intriguing. And then when he came back at 44 years old, it was just fun to see his guts, and then how he changed as a person. He had a lot of hate in his heart when he was first fighting, and then he came back and he was like, no, I love this guy, but I'm just going to beat him as competition rather than kill him. And so it was just good to see how he changed, and he was a preacher, and I just loved and admired that guy for the person that he was.
So dope, dude. That's cool. Yeah, I was a Roy Jones Jr. guy myself, although my boxing style was much different than his. I was not the flashy fast guy, but that's awesome, man. Well, Sammy, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me today and share your story. And I'm sure I'll see you soon and be able to chat with you some more. But I just want to say thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time and sharing this with us. And I truly do appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you too, Shane. And like we love and admire and look up to you as well, even though you're a lot younger than us. But we appreciate people coming out because it's what life's all about, man. Building each other up and learning something from someone else. So appreciate all you do for the youth and for people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. Much love. And for all those who are tuning in, make sure to hit the subscribe button too, so you can come to watch another one next week. We'll chat with you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.